Good evening, indie community, and welcome to the, fifth episode, I believe, of Splam. That is self-publishing like a motherfucker. The Not At All Safe for Work podcast, where we interview fellow self-published authors and pick their brains for the secrets to their success. My name is Robert Bevan, author of the Caverns and Creatures comedy fantasy series, and with me is my co-host, Claire Taylor.
Howdy.
Hey.
Am I supposed to say what I do?
Oh, I don't know. You can.
It hasn't been a lot lately.
Oh. Yeah, Claire's just recovering from, leprosy or something. And
I don't think you recover from that. I think you catch leprosy and then you get a misogynistic fantasy series written about you. Isn't that how that goes?
Yeah. I think so.
And I guess I should introduce our co-hosts from the Authors and Dragons podcast. Tonight we have Rick Gualtieri and John Hartness.
Hello, hello.
What's up? I'll have you people know that I'm missing wrestling for this.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you poor baby.
If only there was a way to record things on television.
Or like an entire on-demand network full of professional wrestling content that I pay $10 a month for.
Be careful, or you might learn how to read.
Fuck that. If I haven't by this point, I'm pretty sure we're safe now. We're safe from it for the future.
Don't worry, John. If you learn how to read, I'll come up behind you. Chair shot.
There you go.
All right. Well, John's given us his news. Anybody else got anything? I'll go. I think we said last week I released CF7, Critical Failure 7. This past week, a couple of days ago, in fact, I put out the latest book in the Shingles series, Welcome to Camp Crystal Meth.
Which might be the least offensive title you've published in that series. Are you feeling okay?
Yeah. No, don't worry, I'm making up for it with the one I'm writing right now.
Okay.
Not title-wise, but...
Because I was a little confused. You started off strong with Ghost of Hooker Alley, and then you moved into It Came From My Butthole and Terror on Hypo Beach, and now...
Don't forget Wax On, Wax Off.
I was really trying to.
2019, the year of the kinder, gentler Bevan.
Yeah, make a smart-ass comment on one of his Facebook ads, and let's see how kinder, gentler he is.
Rick, Claire, you guys got anything? Or John even, I mean... not watching wrestling, is that the only thing you've been doing?
Yeah, well, remember that whole dedicated network just for professional wrestling? Don't worry, I've been watching plenty. But by the time this comes out, we will have Black Knight 7 all night long out in the wild. And probably by the time this airs, we will have Salvation, Quincy Harker Year 4, released on Audible by our friends at Tantor.
Awesome.
I have a book coming out this week.
Oh, good.
For my paranormal cozy mystery pen name. Yeah, this one took a long time to write, but it's book 10 in the series, so I'm like, maybe I'm just losing steam on this series.
Holy shit, I didn't even know you had a cozy paranormal mystery series or a pen name.
That's why it's been taking me so long to do all the other humor stuff, because I've been cranking these out. They're fun. I mean, it's, I get to make up curse words because you can't curse in this genre. But, so I've been working on that sort of on the DL, I guess. And so I have book 10 coming out finally, and I just have to get the cover together tomorrow. And it's coming out day after tomorrow, so, down to the wire.
Do you want to tell us what that pen name is so that I can, go buy that shit? Because I love cozies.
Oh, really? Yeah, you're welcome to. I mean, I don't tell my cozy readers who I actually am because I don't want them finding my offensive humor stuff. But I don't mind my humor people knowing. So my pen name is Nova Nelson, and it's the East Wind Witches series. So it's total brain candy.
Those covers are adorable.
Oh, thanks. I have my friend Carrie McQuaid. She does the silhouettes. I would highly recommend her. She's awesome.
I had a friend once.
Lies.
Yeah, then I opened my mouth. Speaking of opening mouths, I'm not sure by the time this comes out, but it should be close. But The Dragon's Promise, which is book 2 in the Dragonstone erotic series by Cara Vance, who is a lovely, lovely person and who almost certainly is not me under a pen name, should be out. Did I mention she's not me?
You write erotic romance, Rick?
Well, Cara Vance does, who
I mean, your friend Cara.
You know something? I don't even know if there could be called romance. I know one of them, Necromancer's Wife, has one of my favorite reviews on it is somebody who came up who basically is like, this is a really well written story, but it's not really a romance. It's essentially two horrible people just hate fucking.
What's not romance about that?
Like I said, one of my favorite reviews of all time.
All right, well, I guess we should introduce our guests now. This week, Splammers, we've got Eric Asher for you. You want to say hello, Eric?
Hello. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Yeah, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us what you do, what you write?
Oh, no, I'm just here to listen. No. I write the Vesic Urban Fantasy series in the Steamborn YA Steampunk series, and I also have the Mason Dixon novella series that is published by Falstaff, who some people here might be familiar with.
Who?
Fuck you, Gualtieri.
3 series. Another one of these fucking go-getters.
Just last week, the first audiobook of the Mason Dixon stuff was released, so pretty exciting.
Congratulations.
Yeah, but I've been looking forward to this one because I think Eric and I have been following each other on social media for a while, but we haven't met in person yet. But almost everything you put on social media just points to you being a super fun guy.
It's lies. It's all lies.
Yeah, he's totally not the type of person who would sit on a panel at a 75,000 person convention and eat booze ice cream in front of the whole room.
That might have happened.
And that's when we knew we were friends.
So I was creeping on you earlier, as I'm known to do. And I saw that you had a tweet. I was creeping on your Twitter. That you've just become full-time in February, huh?
That is correct. Yeah, and it's actually mostly due to my audiobooks. So that's been a pretty explosively growing market.
That was my saving grace as well.
Yeah, right on. Good to hear.
So
how do you market your audiobooks?
Mostly through Facebook ads, actually. So what I've really found with audiobook buyers, especially on Audible, they're looking for a good deal. So, Audible has their credit system where it's like, 1 credit gets you however long this audiobook is. So if you put out an audiobook that's 10 hours, that's a reasonable savings for them if they use a credit. If you bundle 3 of those together and suddenly they get 30 hours of audio for 1 credit, I've found that a lot of buyers engage with that immediately.
Yeah, I do the same thing on Facebook, man. It's like Facebook ads and audio box sets, those just pay for themselves.
They do. And I actually originally got the idea from one of Rick's early ads that I saw, and I was like, that's brilliant. I'm going to try that. And it works great. I mean, it's phenomenal.
You motherfucking thief. No.
I was going to say you're an inspiration, but no, okay.
That's not how we talk.
Do you produce these through ACX? Oh, yeah. I could kind of kick myself now. Because I don't think you can bundle if you're doing a royalty split.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
100%.
You can't do it like on your own. You have to get the agreement in place with your narrator if you want to.
All right. Well, I will have a talk with them about that.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, very, very, very few narrators are going to argue with. Do you essentially want free money because this is already all recorded?
Yeah.
Yeah, they literally have to record Bubba the Monster Hunter Collected Volume 1.
My other concern with that is, does that cannibalize your single sales? Or does it more than make up for whatever cannibalization is going on?
Well, I quit my day job last month, so I'm going it's okay.
Touche.
I'm hoping that proves out for me as well, because I just last week got the producer for my Bubba series to start working on a bundle for Bubba 1 through 3, and we're going to release that as an audiobook set.
Nice.
As soon as we can. And I didn't realize when I put that thing together that the whole collected volume is over 500,000 words. Wow. So it's almost a Drew Hayes book.
Yeah, that should be what'll that, like, probably about 30 some odd 40 hours or so.
Yeah, they said it was, I think ACX said it was going to be 45 hours.
Oh, wow. You know something? You put that out there for 45 hours for a credit, and
great.
And the only thing I'll say is that if that doesn't move, then you are obviously, like, just maybe like advertising to romance fans or something.
You're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: when you just went full time, how long and you've got 3 series out? Wow, how long have you been writing? When did you start? Take us to the beginning. Tell me about your mother.
Oh, okay.
No.
Back in the no.
We don't do that on this show. It'll get us.
But I had a speech prepared. No, so I kind of started dabbling with it back in, I guess, 2006, but I didn't get serious about it until about 2009. And for a few years, I was really still leaning towards going the traditional route. And I guess it was late 2011, early 2012, I started kind of following the indie publishing and just decided before I had ever even shopped for an agent or anything that I was gonna go independent, because it just seemed so much more flexible. You had more control, and of course the royalty was really enticing at the time.
Oh man, if you had shit written in 2009 and jumped in with the indie, then you might have made a killing.
Or it would have come out and been a huge unedited disaster that ended my career really fast.
I was going to say, who's to say he didn't? It's like, you do know his pet name is Amanda Hawking, right?
Oh, no. That's terrible.
Yeah, but you have to have been an indie for a while to get that joke, because damn.
Yeah.
That's from back when me and Rick started.
Well, that's what he's talking about. That's some 2009 shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2013, I started publishing ebooks, and then I got into audio in 2014. And that's audio for me has been out earning my ebooks for basically since 2015.
Wow.
That's pretty awesome.
Got to get that bundle going.
Now, was that what flipped the switch for you with audio? Was it doing the first Vesic bundle, or did you start seeing? Yeah.
Yeah, that. I mean, I sold a couple thousand a piece of my audiobooks, but once I put them together, they really took off. And I started to get picked up for like Audible promos here and there. Mm-hmm. And finally, what really made me decide to walk away from the day job was they picked me up for a big promo in December. And it moved so many units. It was ridiculous.
Let me ask you this: did you they're doing promos for your bundles?
Yeah.
That man, I got a call a couple of years ago from an Audible rep who discouraged me from bundling my books and said, and I was like, you guys have given me a couple of deals on book 1. Do you do that with bundles? And she's like, no, not really. And she was full of shit.
I don't know if they did it back then though. I mean, they've changed so much. I mean, they've changed in the last 6 months, the kind of stuff they're promoting. So 2 years ago was like a different world for them.
I was going to say that actually wasn't an Audible rep. That was like somebody that was like somebody else who writes lit RPG. Just call it sabotage.
No, that was actually me. Sorry. I was hoping that we could get you to like stay in Korea if we just shit it all.
No, I'd already moved at that point. This is when I was living in Mississippi for that year. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I can't come up with any good reason for you to have stayed in Mississippi. Well, Eric, what's been the biggest adjustment since you've recently gone?
I've realized that I haven't outlined forward far enough because I've already like written out everything that I had outlined. So I have to start outlining more, which is a good problem. Don't get me wrong. But
Right, so you're doing too much writing?
yeah. I, like in the last month, I guess I've put down about 150,000 words.
Wow.
So it's
Well
been
done.
really good. It's been really, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I'm just
turn
going to
off my
mail you
mic
a little
and-
package that's this stack of index cards that's the outline for the Harper book I've been working on.
That's awesome.
No, that's really, I mean, that is impressive. Like most of the people who I know who go and make that transition, there's a lot of like, sort of like wheels spinning, like, okay, now I have all this time on my hands. What do I do? And it's unusual to hear of someone who has such a productive first month off.
It's, I've really treated it as working 2 jobs for, probably the last 4 years at least. So, I get off my day job, I come home, I put in a full 8 hours on the writing business, learning marketing and all that. And so really cutting out not only the time spent at my day job, but the commute back and forth, it was not unusual for it to take 45 minutes each way to get to work. So, I got back a lot of time.
So are you filling all that time with writing, or are you enjoying a little more leisure time?
Oh, definitely more leisure time too. Started exercising a bit more again and playing some video games and all that good stuff.
Yeah, because now you only have to work 10 hours a day instead
Exactly.
of 16 or 18.
Yeah, but it sounds like he's still working 13. Yeah.
Well, no, I guess last year, maybe the year before, I took up dictating with Dragon. So I try to do about 5,000 words a day, and it's dictation for me just works really well. Like I can get the words down a lot faster. So where it might have taken me in the past, 6 or 7 hours to type that much, I can usually dictate that much in 3 or 4 without too much of a problem.
That's
Nice.
fascinating, yeah. I would feel like, I do a 7-mile walk every morning, and man, if I did that and actually made that productive time.
Yep, that's what I do. If I'm like on the exercise bike, or like I've got one of those old like Nordic Track stationary gears. I've just always liked those for some reason, but I'll just dictate while I'm on those things, and it's a nice multitasking.
I envy you because I tried. I mean, I have Dragon and stuff here, and I've tried to dictate, and I just wind up rambling like incoherently.
Was there a learning curve for you to learn Dragon?
Yeah, I heard you got to train it.
Probably the training wasn't too bad for me. The only part of the training that was kind of a pain was getting it to recognize all the spells and stuff from my urban fantasy, because a lot of those are Latin based. But you can add those to the vocabulary and train it. It's just if you have 50 different spells that you use in a series, you need to train all 50 of those if you want it to recognize it correctly. Or you can always just do a find and replace. That works too.
Yeah, but something. I have a series going with spells in Gaelic. No fucking way am I trying that.
No.
You really hate your audiobook narrators, don't you, Rick? Jesus.
I think it's more they hate me.
I have gotten nasty emails from narrators when I've done particularly spell heavy or worse, accent heavy books. My big fear with Dragon has always been I revise in line. I don't type very quickly, but I can get up to 35 or 40 dams a minute as far as backspacing. How does that work with that software?
I like to do that after the fact. So I might dictate a page or two and then go back and edit it while I'm thinking about what I'm going to write next.
Okay.
So I found that works pretty well for me. The first book I did with it ever, I dictated the entire thing before I corrected it in a single word, and it was awful. It sucked so bad. It took as long to edit that thing as it did to write it initially. I mean, it was just, yeah, I didn't realize how much training was involved up front with that. But
Yeah, that's been my fear.
I think the biggest key with Dragon is getting a good microphone and a pretty high-powered computer. Like, put solid-state drives in it, get at least 16 gigs of RAM, and, probably a minimum of like a Blue Yeti mic.
So is that what you're using right now, the Blue Yeti, or are you using a different mic?
So I use the Blue Yeti quite a bit when I'm at my desk, but when I'm actually out and walking around, I use a Sony voice recorder, and plugged into that, I use a Flexi mic. Flexi mics are kind of pricey, but the accuracy that I get out of it when I'm outside walking in the wind, totally worth it.
Yeah, I've got one of those little Sony voice recorders that I use on the rare occasions I try to podcast away from home. They're pretty sweet.
Do you use the Flexi mic when you're on the Nordic track? Because I can imagine that would be hell with the Blue Yeti.
Oh yeah. No, that would be a trick. And the Flexi mic is like a little over the ear, super thin wire. I mean, it's you forget it's even there. It's super light.
Is it like a Countryman style headset like you see in music videos?
I am not sure. I'm going to Google it.
Those always bother me when I see them like on a billboard or something. I just think the singer's got like this weird wart.
Yeah, it's exactly like that, John.
Okay, yeah. So it's a wart. Fair enough.
Very accurate wart.
That's important. Accuracy in your dermatology is, the skin's the largest organ that you have.
So going back to the transition to full-time author, because this is where people will really fuck themselves if they do it, too soon or whatever. What was the point where you, like, if you're telling someone who wants to go full-time, okay, wait until, whenever. What was sort of the thing that tipped you off that it was safe to go full-time?
So I'm super, super paranoid about running out of money when I do self-employment things like this. So my big thing was I wanted 2 years of bills in the bank and all of my unsecured debt paid off. So once I hit that point, I was ready to pull the cord and just walk away. I had been planning on doing that about a year from now, but thanks to Audible basically changing my life in 2 months, I decided to do it earlier.
Yeah, why not?
Very safe choice. 2 years of
This
bills.
is an extremely safe choice.
Yeah.
A lot of people will tell you, you should have at least 3 months in the bank. I would say at a minimum go for 6 months. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's a risk. And like when I say 2 years of bills, I mean I want my marketing expenses in there. I want everything lined up. I know my production costs for my audiobooks, ebooks, cover art, editing, and all that stuff is going to be $40,000 over the next 12 months. So I need to have that lined up, ready to go. I don't want to get to the point where like, hey, we're ready to start recording this, but I can't pay you. That would suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God damn! Sounds like you got your shit together. Probably better than most of us.
Absolutely better than me. I just got fucked with self-employment taxes.
Oh yeah. Like that's one thing. I had been self-employed before when I thought it would be a really good idea to open a comic book store.
Whoa.
So I was kind of ready to sock away 40 cents on every dollar just to be safe. And I think that's a good mark for people to aim for.
Yeah.
Like when they get a royalty check at the end of the month, put away 40 cents on every dollar because you're probably going to owe it in taxes unless you spend a fair amount on marketing and production.
And if you're spending that much on marketing and production, well, then you still need to sock away 40 cents on every dollar so that you can pay for your marketing and production.
Yeah, that's he's not wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, when I first went completely self-employed, I did almost the exact opposite of everything you said to do. So it's good to hear that not everyone making this jump is the flaming ball of stupid that I was. Because, I quit my day job off of the back of 2 really good months of Amazon sales and took a year and lived off my 401k and paid Cobra health insurance and went to every convention I could afford to travel to and half the ones I couldn't, and forgot that there's one really important thing involved in being a writer.
Oh,
I didn't write shit. I might have done 50,000 words all year. So after a year, I went back to a day job for another 2.5 years.
I'm thinking this is why Eric is the guest and we're asking the questions.
But I have to say, it sounds like one hell of a year.
it's been a wild ride. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you and I last saw each other at Dragon Con back in September, this wasn't on your radar.
It was not, man. Not until I got, I guess, end of January is when I realized, oh, yeah. And it was actually my wife, Amy. She was like, yeah, it's time. You need to quit that job.
Yeah.
It was good advice.
Well, she's a smart chick.
She is.
And previous to that really good Audible month, you were having decent sales, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had, most of my months last year were low 5 figures.
Nice.
I've got some author friends that are ridiculously successful, kind of detached from reality at this point, and and they're like, oh, you can't quit your day job until you're making at least like $250,000 a year, and I'm just like, that's crazy. Like, no.
Why not? I never made $250,000 a year at my day job.
Exactly.
Well, a lot of that depends on where you live. Like I'm here in New Jersey, and you can make $250,000 a year and still be looking at your neighbor's garbage cans, going, I think they threw out some chicken from last night.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. Like, yeah, because I'm in St. Louis, so cost of living here is pretty reasonable in most aspects. But yeah.
Yeah, I've looked at cost of living up further north, and North Carolina looks better every time I look at any place else. I couldn't survive in most parts of the country.
Oh man, let me tell you, back in the day, I had a team down at Fayetteville, and I would visit them twice a year, and all I would do was, like, when I would get back to headquarters, would be like, guy, it'd be really awesome. It'd be much better for the business if you transferred me down there, but kept me at my New Jersey salary.
I have a couple of friends who got that deal. They got their bosses to do that. It worked out real well, especially when they sold their New Jersey houses and bought
their drug compounds.
Yeah, almost. I mean, I have a friend who lived in a 1,200 square foot house in Jersey that when they sold it, they bought a 3,000 square foot house in North Carolina for 2/3 the money.
God damn.
Oh, wow.
You just described everyone from California who's moving to Texas.
Oh, yeah, I can't. The cost of living out there, I'm like, yeah, I couldn't do it. I just,
By the way, guys, there are houses for sale on my street. Just saying.
Mine too. It's weird.
But then we got to live near you.
I don't leave the house. What are you talking about?
Yeah, neither do I. So it'd be like,
live 2 doors down and we're still talking on Skype.
Yep.
Yeah, I have left the house so little in the past month. I don't think any of my neighbors even realize that I'm like not going to a job anymore.
My neighbors must think I have just the strangest job, because the truck will sit there for 4 days without ever moving, and then I just load all of these plastic bins full of crap in the back and drive away for 3 days.
Time to haul out the hooker parts again.
So what other advice would you have for somebody who's looking to go full time? You do a pretty bang up job of regimenting your word count, and you did a pretty good job of setting up your finances. But what's something that maybe people haven't thought about? What's the impact on you and Amy? I know when I first stopped working and I was home all the time, it was a big period of adjustment for us.
No, so with my old job, Amy always worked longer hours than me anyway. So she'd like leave before me and get home after me. So as far as that goes, not much has changed.
Okay.
So that impact's been very small. The amount of money I have to put towards the bills due to the increase in health insurance costs is, it's not giant, but it's certainly something to consider. Like, because you want to be sure you've got that walking around.
Yeah, and if you've made the mistake of breeding multiple times, like some people.
Don't get me started, Hartness.
Yeah, that's another thing we have not done and have no intention of ever doing. So it's
that's cheating.
Yeah,
the best financial decision you'll ever make.
But we do have God, I lost count, but we've got 8 or 9 nieces or nephews now.
Is that why you're not doing it?
Yeah, we can borrow them and give them back. It's great.
We keep talking to all these talking to people who who automatically beat me by the thing of don't live in New Jersey, don't have kids, don't have kids. There's just no catching up to you now.
Yeah, sorry, pal.
Another thing I think people should really consider is what are they going to do when their current marketing strategies start failing? Because they will. Marketing changes.
Don't tell me that.
The tactics change, but your strategy can kind of stay consistent. Right? I mean, you still know what you're going for, but maybe Facebook stops working or...
I'd say my marketing goals stay the same, but my approach definitely will change. I'll cycle between BookBub ads, Facebook ads, AMS ads, and a year ago with AMS ads, you could run. Oh, I'm going to forget the name wrong. Was it product display ads that would show up on the home screen?
Yeah.
And they were phenomenal, super effective. They changed it to lock screen ads, and for a lot of genres, that's not nearly as effective as it used to be.
Yeah, I tried it for a couple of weeks and it blew.
Actually, let's back up a bit because I know BookBub ads is I know it's voodoo that I haven't cracked. I got a 2% click through rate on one horror ad, and I was on my knees sacrificing goats. So
you're crushing my results.
So tell us about your BookBub ad voodoo there.
So I'm not doing a lot of them right now, because I tell you what, when you find a good audience on BookBub, you burn it out in no time. And you may have noticed this when you got that one ad that started working really well. It's once BookBub delivers it to those, X thousands of people that are in there, they don't deliver it anymore, is my understanding. So then you have to target another author, target another genre, whatever your strategy is there. But more than any other platform, they really require a lot of split testing to find stuff that works. And sometimes it is the ugliest graphic you can imagine that'll work. And it's okay, well, if it's making sales. But I use, what's it called? BookBrush. Are you guys familiar with that?
No.
So BookBrush is a really easy way to generate ad graphics. If you already are really good with Photoshop, then that's probably completely pointless. But they have a lot of templates that are sized to the various ad platforms and stuff, and it comes in really handy if you need to throw something together real quick. Let me make sure that I'm actually saying that name right. Yeah, bookbrush.com.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah,
because I went straight to it.
Right on.
So it's called BookBrush. Is it specifically designed for book ads?
Yeah.
I don't get that. If they got an ad development software kind of thing, why specific for books?
Probably because it's targeted.
Yeah.
And because they know that most indie authors don't want to deal with that shit.
Yeah.
And because if you put out a service that says for indie authors,
I think it was founded by some indies or something.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'd probably understand it more if I looked at it.
Eric, do you outsource some of your work to anyone else? Any of the minutia?
Just as far as like managing my platform and stuff.
Yeah.
Some of it, I have a PR group that I work with, Redcoat PR. They're really good. They're run by Rick and Amy Miles, and Amy's been an indie for a long time. I think she started publishing in 2012, maybe 11. But they handle a lot of things like submitting your book for BookBubs and whatever other things that you maybe don't want to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And they will also, God, I don't even know what all they do for me. I have to go back and I get them confused with I also have like an actual assistant, and she's like a pay by the hour, so I only have her for like 4 to 6 hours a month. But in that time, she'll maintain my website. If you guys use reader links at all, she like updates my reader link stuff for me, so I don't have to do all that.
Yeah, we had John on a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, right on. Yeah, reader links is awesome. Highly recommend using those guys, and set your pixel up on there, and your audience engagement will go through the roof.
Gotta get on that.
Yeah, whatever Logsdon was telling you, it was probably true. I was very skeptical at first. I was actually in the beta with those guys, and yeah, it's a wonderful tool.
And I only heard about it from you, and you're the reason I started using it.
Right on.
I'm telling you guys, like in subsequent weeks, we maybe got to gotta space this out and get a couple authors on who just have no fucking idea what they're doing, just so just so we don't look as bad.
I was going to say, we can just interview each other.
Yeah.
It'll be like John, Rick, and Bob explain how they have no idea how they've ever sold a book. But hey,
it's like, do you have an assistant? Do my kids count? No. Then no.
I have a cat, but he's more a hindrance.
Well, yeah, man, I like my PR company and my assistant, like just brainstorming marketing ideas and stuff with them it can be really helpful. Just somebody to bounce off ideas off of that, kind of has their head in that space.
That's awesome. So, speaking of platform team, let's move on to I guess your book team. So you write the books. Do you have a team that edits them? Because I'm looking, you got some really nice covers going on here.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've got a couple different teams in place. One that was specializing in my steampunk stuff, and one that was specializing in my urban fantasy stuff, and then of course John and Falstaff for my Mason Dixon stuff. And I've done some other smaller projects. The Havenwood Falls shared universe, I did a story for that, and that was another one kind of like Falstaff, where they provided all of the editing and cover art and things like that. But I've been working with my oldest team is my urban fantasy team. So I have a developmental editor. So basically my process is this: I write the first draft, I go through it, and then pull all my hair out rewriting the second draft. That goes off to my developmental editor, and once she's done, it goes off to my copy editor. Once she's done, it goes off to a proofreader, and then off to formatting after that. So it's it's a multi-stage process, and I know some people will skip some of those steps, but I'm just not comfortable skipping them. And then
it's usually skipped to their detriment.
Yeah, exactly. And as far as cover art goes, with my urban fantasy, with my Vesic stuff, we actually did a casting call to find a model that looked as much like my main character as we could find, and we shot I don't even know how much we shot, but I want to say we've got enough stock built up with him for like 20 or 30 books, which I don't know if I'll write that many, but hey, we're good to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then my cover artist on Vesic is Fat Puppy Art, which she's worked with. She's worked with a lot of people. If you just check out her website at Fat Puppy Art, she's got all kinds of stuff out there.
Well, how'd you get that photo? Like, did you run the photo shoot? Did you hire somebody? I personally find that fascinating because, like, there's tons of stock sites out there, and, like, a lot of cover artists can do some, like, some real magic with that, but there's definitely that annoyance of, like, being like, hey, I got a great cover, and that other person's has the same fucking face on their cover.
Right.
Don't know what you're talking about, Ricky boy.
There's a model, I forgot the guy's name, but, like, I swear, like, every other romance novel that I saw getting published had his face on it for like 2 years, and it's like, yeah, somebody needs some more stock photo sites. It's crazy.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we did. We actually got like a sword with a hilt that matched what was in the books. We got a replica pepperbox pistol for him to use in the poses. And then basically I gave the photographer an idea of what I wanted the cover to be. And then after the photography was done, the digital artist, Fat Puppy, she took those photos, found backgrounds that matched the descriptions that I had given them, and then superimposed those and, digitally edited them to look as seamless as she could.
I love the name Fat Puppy.
Yeah. And that's PHAT in case you're Googling it.
Love it even more.
Oh, that is cool. I'm gonna assume because I've heard, like, I'm not gonna ask you for numbers, but I'm gonna assume because I've heard some tales out there that photo shoot is probably not something a beginner is probably gonna be able to afford.
No, it's not cheap, and I mean my first shoot with them was 6 years ago, so obviously prices are going to be vastly different now.
So what would you say to someone who said it's not worth it? Would you encourage them? So
I had a different cover on my first book, so I can kind of speak to this from a place of experience. It did okay. I earned out with my original cover, but then there were so many people that were like, hey, you ever think about doing a fancier cover? So I did, and my increase in sales was about 40% overnight as soon as I published that new cover. The other thing that I've been experimenting with lately is book descriptions, like the actual description of the product on Amazon. A lot of people kind of slop something out there, and I'm one of those people. And I hired Brian Cohen's group to rewrite the description for my Steamborn books and to rewrite the description for some of my Vesic books. And with Vesic, I saw about a 20% increase in sales and page reads, both. And with Steamborn, it was shortly after I changed the description on Steamborn that the audiobook sales just utterly exploded. So I can't entirely give credit to that for the audiobook explosion, but clearly it didn't hurt.
I would recommend Best Page Forward too, but full disclosure, I just recently quit working for Best Page Forward, so I should disclose that. Yeah. I don't think I worked on your description, so I can't take credit. But it is a very good process, and there's some really good product. And I know there are a lot of different views on like what a good description looks like. But I've had them do some for me too, because it's hard to do your own book description when you're that close to it, and it really does. It does help with the ROI and the sales and all that.
It's really good, and I hate writing them, so I will happily pay someone to do that for me. There's a newer group out there called the Blurb Doctor that. It's Stacey Rourke's doing that. She runs one of the indie conventions up in Michigan called Once Upon a Book. But I'm not sure she's totally booked up yet or not. But she's writing descriptions now, and she's got some really nice chops. So that's another one to check out if you're shopping.
good to know, because that's not even something every once in a while I'll go back through and tweak my blurbs, but I've never, until you mentioned it to me a couple of weeks ago, I'd never considered hot jobbing that out. I was just like, well, it's part of my job.
Yeah, I've worked with like 3 different groups on this, and they all basically, they present you with a questionnaire. You fill out the questionnaire. Part of the questionnaire is basically giving them like a miniature synopsis, and then they spice it up and put it into a book description, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it really does help, because it's like almost like a game of telephone. So sometimes it can be a little bit off, especially if, the questionnaires aren't filled out with any coherence. But it's like taking that step back and not getting so into the details of like, and then this character who has this, Gaelic name, it does this and this and this, and then this other Gaelic character does this, and it's like kind of shopping it out to someone. I would recommend that to anyone, because it really does distill to like the coolest shit in your book that readers will pick up on. And it doesn't have to be 100% accurate. It just has to like kind of talk about getting into like, it has to talk about, okay, who's the main character? What's the awesome conflict that's going on? What's the main theme going on? And then it's just a launch of that sort, rather than like a summary, which I see a lot of authors mess up by trying to summarize.
Right.
Yes, God.
Some of my author friends, I've had them kind of knee jerk when they get a blurb back from one of these groups. They're like, oh, there's too many spoilers in this. And it's like, there's still a lot more to the book, and this is hooking the reader to buy your book. I mean, like, it's okay. You can have minor spoilers in there. Don't give away.
That is a huge point.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, you give a little bit, but like readers aren't gonna, like no one wants to go in blind, so it's about finding that balance of like, hey, and then there's this twist, if it's a twist and like from act 1 to act 2, like something crazy, it's not a spoiler,
Yep.
What about for later books in a series? Because the reason I'm asking the question is because I put some thought into my first book's blurb, but these last few books I put out, like, fuck it. If you've read through 5, you know whether or not you want to go to 6. So yada yada yada. The guys are still doing shit and killing monsters, whatever.
I think that's a fair point. And I'm actually just starting to work through my series, so I might have more insight on that in a few months. But yeah, right now I don't really know.
I would say, like, because I noticed this in the past, that like my philosophy is you put as much work into subsequent books, because here's the thing, it might not help, but it definitely doesn't hurt. And
sure.
And here's the thing, your blurb might entice somebody who might look and be like, oh, that's a really cool story. Oh wait, this is book 7. Let me go back to book 1.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That is a very fair point. Yeah.
Yeah, because going back a couple of years, when I did Holier Than Thou, which is book 4 of my Tome Bill series, I noticed I had a lot of people hitting that book, or like shooting me an email saying, hey, I read the blurb, and then I decided to start the series. So I was like, well, fuck that. I'm not half-assing book 3 and 4 and 5 and stuff.
Oh man, I've half-assed everything.
Well, that's kind of your brand, though.
No, but I mean,
you polish off that turd too much, people won't buy it.
I know. That's what I'm. Yeah, I'm hearing you guys talk. It's like, oh, should I pay for this great cover or whatever? And then I think my covers are a photograph my brother-in-law took of dice, and but I mean that big fat fucking D20. I think that's what sells books. But
those are really eye-catching covers. I mean, they're simple, but you're so well branded with that. I mean, no one looks at that and says, "Oh, that's somebody else."
Yeah, there's something to be said about it. Sometimes you tweak and you kill the magic, Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I wouldn't worry about Caverns and Creatures branding. I think you're like dead on, like stupid dead on. Or sometimes I just get
certainly
mad.
Stupid.
One thing to remember is we all got our own path in this business, and and somebody else's secret sauce might just be might just be raw sewage for us.
That's a really important point. That's it. Like I can tell everybody what I've done that worked for me, but that doesn't mean it's ever going to work for anyone else ever again. And it's like, I'm not trying to mislead anyone, but these are the things I've done for marketing, and they worked for me, and you never know. And that's why it's so important to just test. Like, try something. If it doesn't work, try something else.
Yeah.
Just like what you said earlier, everything changes.
Yeah.
Audible's a different company now than they were 2 years ago. Marketing is going to be different 6 months from now than it is right now. And the stuff, when Rick and I broke in 2010, 2011, all you really needed to do was be kind of a smart-ass male protagonist urban fantasy, because there were less than half a dozen of us writing it.
Mm-hmm. Now that it's all of urban fantasy.
Yeah, you cannot swing a dead cat without hitting 5 fucking guys with glowing purple magic farts.
I have explicitly avoided the glowing purple trend.
Yeah, I just had that conversation with a cover artist last week. Like, I had literally just, Rick and I think, were talking, and he said something about the magic fart. And I messaged all my cover artists saying, no magic farts, when I got a cover that was all full of purple fart.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like a lot of indies, they just follow a trend, and just like, they'll read a book and they'll just do exactly as the book says, or they'll like see, like, a popular genre and do exactly as that popular genre. And here's the thing: in the short term, you can actually do pretty well there. I mean, look at how many people cleaned up in lit RPG or reverse harem or stuff, essentially just kind of doing more or less the same thing. But those are kind of short-term trends. And in the long term, you have to establish your own brand that somebody looks at. For example, like Bob, you're like, your Caverns and Creatures covers. People look at that. Your name is associated with those. And you really, you cannot, like, just do that by doing what everybody else is doing. You cannot achieve that.
Yeah, there really is some soul searching that has to go into establishing your entire brand. I mean, it doesn't have to. And I think when people just start following the trend is when people get in trouble, and they end up on that hamster wheel because they have to follow trend after trend after trend, and they have so many random, sundry series that there's no strong brand, there's no strong connection between the reader and the author.
And so many pen names.
Yeah.
So many pen names. You mentioned yours earlier, and Rick mentioned that he's not at all Caravans. And those make sense because you don't want your cozy readers to follow you to stuff that is going to turn them off. But if you're writing science fiction and urban fantasy and horror and high fantasy, and you're managing a pen name for every one of those, readers are pretty smart. They understand that people can write and read a whole bunch of shit. So I see a lot of people fragmenting way too much into pen names for audiences that have a natural overlap already.
I'll offer a counterpoint there, because one of the biggest sorts of complaints, and one of the things that just ticks me the fuck off, is like Bigfoot Hunters versus Bill the Vampire. Bill the Vampire is horror comedy. Bigfoot Hunters is just horror. And despite the fact there is nothing in Bigfoot Hunters, in fact, it pretty much comes out and says, this is gory horror. I have tons of Goodreads and Amazon reviews that are like, oh, this was good, but it wasn't funny. So there is that. Yes, I think people will accept it, but there also is that maddening. If it's not exactly the same, people will still ding you.
And then you get the question of, but why did you go back and write more in this series that we all love? After you said you ended the series.
Don't get me started on that shit.
If you can't wind up your friends, who can you wind up?
But I mean, at the same time, you could look at James Patterson. James Patterson could put his name on a political thriller one week and a cookbook the next week, and and do it fine.
Yeah, I mean, I've had I was concerned when I published Amazing Grace under my name because that book is so very different from anything else that I've ever written. I've had nothing as far as backlash. Nobody's come back and said, well, this is fine, but there's no vampires. And I haven't had anybody who's read any of my other stuff and said, well, I liked that Amazing Grace book, but that boy sure does swear a lot in his other books.
Yeah, I've started differentiating, like trying to train people that if you see Rick Gualtieri, it means it's probably humor. And if you see R. Gualtieri, it means it's probably a little more serious. And if you see Rick Gualtieri and R. Gualtieri and think they're two different people, you're probably a moron.
And that means you're my target audience. Yeah, it's always a balancing act. Now, Eric, when you were writing, now the Steamborn series is complete, right? Or are you still working?
I'm going to do some more in it. So there's like the initial trilogy, but there was still some plot threads left open in case, it ever sold something. So
Smart.
And that's steampunk, and isn't it YA as well?
It is YA, yes. So one F-bomb in the entire trilogy.
Did you make it count?
It counted so much, yes.
Okay.
I so feel you there. In the first 3 Black Knight books, there's one F-bomb. And I still use very few F-bombs in that series, because that series is pretty close to PG-13. Actually, no, that series is PG-13.
In my first 3 words, there's one. Never mind.
The second word of the Quincy Harker series is fuck.
There are 300 F-bombs in Bill of the Dead, book 1.
Oh man, I don't know how many I had in mind.
But what do you find are some of the challenges with marketing your existing stuff to different audiences? Because your steampunk audience presumably is going to be a different audience than your Vesic audience.
It is so different. I just created a separate page for it on Facebook, and I have a separate mailing list for it for my newsletter. Because the crossover was very small. It is just, I honestly, I didn't expect it to be a huge crossover, but I thought there would be a reasonable amount of crossover. There was not.
Yeah.
It might be one of those things where there was more crossover before Steamborn got the Audible dust and started blowing up.
Yeah, that is possible too. But so basically, coming back around to reader links, when I do my marketing and stuff, I use reader links for everything. If I'm sending someone to a page, I'm using reader links. Mm-hmm. And if it's a Steamborn ad, then I'm using a reader link that is completely separate from my Vesic stuff because it actually has a different reader links ID in it. And what's nice is that allows me to still advertise everything from one page if I want, but separate the traffic through the Facebook pixel. But at the same time with Steamborn, I just have a separate page too, because that's the only way I could figure out how to do it before I learned more about pixels. So
have you found that your readers are smart about differentiating the series?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I've used my regular name for everything, so I didn't have any pen names for other genres or anything. And I figure, as long as everything I'm doing is some version of sci-fi or fantasy, it seems to be okay. I haven't really had many complaints.
Well, actually, I was going to ask, have you ever gotten any shit? Because there's apparently people out there who have designated themselves the YA police, you know.
Just my uncle. He's my uncle's actually a librarian. I love the guy. And he he cracks me up because he'll be like, you really don't need to use that much language in these books. It's the character, you know. It's the character. It's me.
Sorry, pal. Vesic's the fucking potty mouth.
Exactly.
But let's be honest. 12-year-olds are all speaking like that. So
exactly.
I say that to people at conventions. I'll have these teenagers, and their parents are like, well, what age is this book appropriate for? And they're like, does your kid go to public school or do you homeschool? If they homeschool, I tell them it's not appropriate. If they go to public school, I'm like, they know more curse words than I do.
Yeah, I had a reader giving me shit because I had this 12-year-old character who, like, he's cursing, he's like talking about, like, you know, sex and stuff. She's like, that's unrealistic. I'm like, did you step out of a time machine from Little House on the Prairie or something?
Yeah, pretty sure you've got some fairly recent experience with how 12-year-olds talk.
My middle son just banned me from his fucking Discord server today.
Well, you know, we told you that those photos were not appropriate for all ages.
All right, we're moving. We're moving on in the hour here. So what's next on the horizon for you, Eric?
Next is my grand experiment. So I'm writing, basically my 8th Vesic title ended on the mother of all cliffhangers, and oh man, the hate mail I got off of that! Wow. I think we're gonna have to dedicate my next book to like my hate mail. It was pretty epic. But what I'm doing is, the main character, let's say he has some issues by the end of that book. So I'm going to do 9 novellas and each one's going to be told from a different character's perspective. And each story you get is going to overlap with the one that comes after it. So you kind of get this cyclical storytelling of all the things that are going on while the shitstorm's happening in the main story arc, and like how they're going to try to dig out and unfuck some very fucked up stuff.
That sounds interesting.
That sounds really fun.
I'm loving it. Like, I've already got the first 3 written, and I'm outlining the next few. But they're going to be around 30,000 words apiece, and I'm going to get them written ahead of time and then do a rapid release. Which I'm excited to see what that does for the ebook side of things, but at the same time, I'm like, oh shit, 3-hour audiobooks are not going to sell. I have to get enough of them written that I can box them up.
Yeah.
Well, are you not going to box up the whole 9 and just release that?
That's exactly what I'll do.
Yeah. Are you going to release them individually as well?
I'm going to release them individually as well, because I'm going to have to pay for the production anyway, so I figure I might as well spread it out as I'm going along.
And honestly, in a strong series, 3-hour audiobooks don't do that bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they do that great either. I think it's smart if you're paying for production to put it out there anyway. But I think you're definitely going to see a lot more take for that box set.
Yeah, you figure the box set's going to end up at around 30 hours when it's all done. Yeah. So I think that'll have some strong appeal to it.
Yeah. But they're fine. Because I do all the Harker novellas individually, and then bundle them at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sell pretty well.
That's good. Oh, that's great.
And all the Bubba stuff for the past couple of years has been individual novellas and then a bundle release. So it's not, you don't come out with a gangbusters release like for a full-length product, but it's a nice steady stream of income throughout the year.
Yeah.
No, that's nice, man. That gives me some hope.
Yeah, no, they do fine.
And I'll add, the one nice thing is editing a 30,000 word novella versus a 130,000 word novel. Night and day.
Yeah, it was like, 3 days, I'm done. What? Wait.
Yeah.
The rest of the work.
And also, for something like that, where it's one big arc, a lot of your developmental can be done as one shot, because once you know where the plot falls apart, most of it's going to be line and copy edit.
Yes, you are correct.
Well, that sounds really fun, and it would not be a smart move if it was the way you started the series, but like once you're 8 books in, you can kind of do whatever the hell you want.
Let's hope.
Yeah. Well, your core group of fans will follow you, and you've built up that equity with those fans. Mm-hmm. It probably wouldn't be the smartest thing if that was going to be your very first non-paranormal cozy mystery under a new name.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Or that's going to be your your entree into hard sci-fi, because that's a genre that loves the 30,000 word length.
Per chapter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Might want to keep that away from epic fantasy.
If people want to buy your shit, where can they find you?
So always Amazon, of course, and Audible, highly recommend. But you can always find me at my website, which is just ericrasher.com. And then pretty much any social media, just /Eric R. Asher.
And that's Eric with a C.
That is Eric with a C, yes.
Oh, what actually brings one quick question. Are you Kindle Unlimited or wide?
So my Vesic series is Kindle Unlimited because I found that urban fantasy sells better on Amazon than anywhere else, so I figured I'd just capitalize on that environment. And then my steampunk, my YA stuff is wide. And I think Mason's still wide, isn't it, John?
I don't remember, honestly, without going to look it up. It's going to move into Kindle Unlimited because all of our numbers on everything that's not Amazon are pretty minor. Horror comedy and light urban fantasy, you're right, are just owned by Amazon.
Yeah.
Except for very few people like Gail Martin, who has a presence overseas where Kobo is stronger.
I could see that. Yeah. So, yeah, it looks like Mason is wide at the moment, but
okay.
That'll be in KU at some point.
Yeah, once we do the fourth one, we'll probably keep the fourth novella and keep them all wide for 2 or 3 months. And then when we're ready to release the collection, we'll pull it all into KU.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm excited I've got some ideas on the fourth one that I'm cooking up right now, so it's going to be fun.
I can't wait because I really want to have a whole row of you guys sitting at some panel at Dragon Con with books that I've published sitting in front of you.
That would be awesome.
And speaking of, what other conventions and appearances? I know you did Coastal Magic last month.
Oh, yeah, Coastal Magic. Man, if you ever get a chance to go, that is one that I highly recommend. As far as what else is coming up.
Asher likes Coastal Magic because he's one of 3 guys at that con every year.
James Hunter was down there this year.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I saw on your website that you have events, and it's like, wow, he's got all these events scheduled and so fucking organized.
That's my assistant, man. That is not So yeah, RAGT in Cincinnati coming up in June. Once Upon a Book in Michigan in July. Book Bonanza in Texas in August, and then of course Dragon Con into August, and then Penn Con in St. Louis in September.
Well, I will see you in Atlanta, and hopefully Rick will make it down as well, and you guys can finally meet.
Yes, I will actually be there.
Oh, man. I might even drive 45 minutes into town and see you guys. Or, I don't know, maybe not. That's a long way from my garage.
I'll stop by for breakfast on my way into town on Thursday.
Do that. I offered you meatloaf, and you turned your nose up at me.
I was busy breaking a tooth on a piece of candy and wishing I'd fucking eaten the meatloaf.
Yeah, I can't blame you, John. If I just get Bob randomly offering me meatloaf, I might be a little leery too.
It wasn't my dick.
I've played Authors and Dragons with you for 4 years now. I don't necessarily believe that. Well, Eric, thanks so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate it. I think that we've all learned some stuff, and hopefully our listeners have too.
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Awesome talking to you.
Thanks, Eric, and thank you, dear listeners, for joining us on Splam. If you enjoyed this, we hope you will like and subscribe and stuff, and join us next time in the next leg of our journey towards self-publishing like a motherfucker.